In Adorno's Negative Dialectics, on page 159, he says at each new dialectical step, Hegel goes against the intermittent insight of his own logic, forgets the rights of the preceding step, and thus prepares to copy what he chided as abstract negation, an abstractowit, a subjectivity in arbitrarily confirmed positivity. Dialectic indeed has steps because it passes through different determinations. It moves through different determinations. It tries to comprehend as it moves through different determinations. And this is a fascinating comment. Hegel goes against the intermittent insight of his own logic. And in a sense, I don't think that this is something that's a bad thing. I think it makes sense that we would try to achieve this type of consciousness where we are constantly negating our own psychological projections and our own logical formations because we're trying to get beyond the dogmatism of them. Or more importantly, we're trying to progress. We're trying to maintain a progression to our logic. Adorno says, in theory, this positivity springs from the method, not from the thing. Now, I found this to be most fascinating. I wrote in my side note, to become conscious of being deceived by the positivity coming from the message as contrived as ideology. So, to become conscious of being deceived by the positivity coming from, not the message, the method as contrived as ideology. This struck me that where positivity springs from, is the positivity coming from the thing itself? Is reality giving us a positivity? Or are we producing a positivity, contriving it through our method? Now, even if we're contriving it through our method, it's not entirely flawed. This is not something that's necessarily wrong. And the only reason we say it's not necessarily wrong is because getting at ultimate reality is not the ultimate objective of life. It can't be. Because if getting at ultimate reality negates life, then that cannot be the ultimate objective of life. And so, if positivity springs from a method, it can still have tremendous value, even if it's contrived, because that positivity stands as a rebuke to a kind of negativity that reality is imposing on us that possibly has the power to extinguish or shatter the motivation of life. This is the domain that rigorous, disciplined nihilists enter into in the process of their thought. In theory, this positivity springs from the method, not from the thing, as Hegel's view it, as in Hegel's view it should, and its worldwide ideological dissemination has kept pace with its turn into a mockery that convicts itself of mischief-making unreality. The thing about Adorno that is incredible, he is Hegel's greatest student. He truly is. Because Adorno has taken the charge of Hegel to tarry with thought. Adorno has taken that more serious than any other thinker that I've ever seen. Because Adorno is willing to tarry with thought all the way down to the bottom. So if we get to a place where we have a method that constructs positivity, but reality itself does not contain that, we see that it's contrived. It's a mischief-making unreality. Adorno will follow the positivity past the point into its negativity, even if the price is essentially the rational negation of life, the absolute negation of life, or the warranted negation of life, the rational negation of happiness. Adorno's still following it down there. And I think that there's a real sense in which somebody has to do this. We have to get down to that level at some point so that we can construct a better positivity. This negativity that we reach in our analysis of material reality, this frightening negativity, there's a real sense in which it is a necessity, because it helps us to construct a greater positivity, because we're able to contextualize what reality is, what's at stake, and we're able to create a more conscious positivity as opposed to these religious formations, these subconscious religious formations of positivity that are essentially delusions. These are delusions that humans fabricate to make themselves feel better, but the problem is they're not generated from a thought that has penetrated to the very bottom. The bottom in the religious consciousness is itself also contrived. It needs to be contrived, because that contrivance is necessary to the positive formation. And by controlling that negativity, the religious formation is able to all the more powerfully fend off its uncomfortable feelings of reality or what it fears, because it controls the bottom of the negativity. It does not allow reality to define it. It creates a method that does it. Now, I'm saying that this act of having a method that creates positivity, there's nothing actually wrong with it, but it's probably going to be incompetent and lacking in its power if the method is not conscious of the negativity that resides at the base of reality. So Adorno says, in theory, the positivity springs from the method, not from the thing, as in Hegel's view it should. And its worldwide ideological dissemination has kept pace with its turn into a mockery that convicts itself of mischief-making unreality, down to the vernacular of praising men who are positive, and ultimately in the homicidal phrase of positive forces. A fetish is made of the positive in itself. Against this, the seriousness of unswerving negation lies in its refusal to lend itself to sanctioning things as they are, to to negate a negation does not bring about its reversal. It proves rather that the negation was not negative enough. This is an incredible passage in the negative dialectics that is so compacted, and this whole book is a book that is completely compacted. And what he's saying here, down to the vernacular of praising men who are positive, and ultimately, I love this, in the homicidal phrase of positive forces. Now, the way that I think of this is that we have an ideology, a positive ideology that rises up in society where the positive is given a position or place of authority, of high authority. This is the idea of praising men who are positive. And ultimately, in the homicidal phrase of positive forces. Now, when I think of this, I think of this notion of a homicidal phrase is that the idea of positive forces unleashed within society means that it is ideological forces that are unleashed on society. Now again, there's a space that negative dialectics does not, I think, comprehend, where we have reached the bottom, and when we reach the bottom, when we've seen through everything, we realize that it is our duty to construct. It's our duty to build. Because when we see through everything, we lose meaning, we lose context, we just become a phenomenology, a phenomena within the phenomenology. But we really need to be constructing a world that makes life worth living. To phrase it another way, it creates experiences, human experiences, that are qualitative. So qualitative that when we die, we want to live them over again. It makes life worth living. So qualitative that if we could kind of do a Rawlsian experiment where we look down on the earth and we saw what type of experience people were having within a particular society, that experience was so good that we say, yes, I'm willing to enter into this life. I'm willing to go through that experience. This would be an intelligent species. This is the formation of intelligent primates, but this lies very far from primates being able to accomplish this practically, because primates are so impulsive. We are a hyperspecies. We are an impulsive species. And we have a very hard time thinking in terms of long-term development, thinking in terms of the development of the social. So down to the vernacular of praising men who are positive, and ultimately in the homicidal phrase of positive forces, a fetish is made of the positive in itself. So it's true, and I think this is what's coming in society, that we are going to see these positive forces and this positive ideology that is really a tyranny, that is a denial of the complexity of reality. And the thing that these positive forces are denying, it's a one-sidedness, so it's certainly not a dialectical positivity, which would be very different. A dialectical positivity would never lose sight of the negative. It couldn't. That's what orders and shapes its positive, is because it doesn't lose sight of that. It keeps touch with that. But these kind of ideological positive forces This kind of positivity that we are talking about here, where a fetish is made of the positive in itself, this kind of positivity is structured to deny uncomfortable aspects of reality, or socially complicated aspects of reality, or even what is worse, it's so shallow, this social structure becomes so shallow that the ideology is simply the ideology of plutocrats. This is very tragic. It's simply a plutocratic ideology that has entered into the public sphere and dominated it, silently dominated it, so that any form of the social that stands in the way of the development of plutocratic power, of plutocratic supremacy, of plutocratic accumulation, is then annihilated by these positive forces, by this positive ideology. Because this plutocratic ideology that silently enters into society, that is shaping society, it doesn't want any opposition, of course. And so the positive is essentially structured in such a way that any type of opposition is declared to be the negative, but we can put it in a different term. Reality in this social structure becomes a delusion. So the real is inverted into the delusion, and the delusion is inverted into the real. That's the insanity of it. So what is considered to be positive is actually delusional. It's not the positive, it's the tyrannical. And it's a delusional because it's denying negative aspects of reality. That's what it's all about. It's not about actually understanding reality. It's about denying negative aspects of reality, but not only negative aspects of reality, aspects of reality that get in the way of the plutocratic formation of society, essentially. So, this positivity suppresses the negative and comes to dominate society, and this inversion happens. And so anyone who's reaching to see through these positive forces, to penetrate beyond the lie of the false positive, to dialectically see through it and dismantle it, to call out its contradiction, to shine a light on its contradiction, to shine a light on its opposition, to shine a light on its lie, these individuals are met by these positive forces, and they are classified, they are characterized, they are defined as holding to extremist positions or delusional positions, because the idea of the positive that's become a fetish essentially holds dominance and sway over the consciousness of the society. Now, Adorno says against this, the seriousness of unswerving negation lies in its refusal to lend itself to sanctioning things as they are. This is quite important. The seriousness of unswerving negation. So, negative dialectics, we could translate this into the seriousness of the thinker who wants to hold on to and to comprehend reality, has a refusal. This act of thought is a refusal. Thought as refusal. it does not simply mindlessly adopt the plutocratic structure of the positive and the positive forces. It doesn't mindlessly just conform to the culture. It's already outside the culture, thinking. And so this refusal is actually a form of thought, of critical thought, that pushes back against and contemplates what is really contained within the positive and what the positive is made of. And we can simplify again. Thought is really just the act of questioning. That's largely what it is. It's the act of asking questions and then thinking about the questions that have been asked. But there's a repetition to it. A good thinker is doing this at a high level. They're constantly thinking like this. But a skilled thinker, they know how to ask the right questions. A skilled digger knows how to dig in the right place. Skilled thinkers know how to ask the right questions, which means they know how to ask presuppositional questions. Now, what are presuppositional questions? Presuppositional questions are questions that comprehend the assumptions that lie behind premises or propositions. They understand the presuppositional structure that lies underneath the architecture of the knowledge base. So the highest level thinkers think at this level of presupposition, and they ask questions that target those presuppositions. So good thinkers are skilled at asking, targeting the assumptions that lie behind propositions, and then targeting those assumptions with critical questions. Adorno says, to negate a negation does not bring about its reversal. It proves rather that the negation was not negative enough. Now that's an incredible statement, that the reason we have to do a double negation, and he's so right, is that the original negation was not negative enough. So we have maybe an advance here in dialectic, possibly. Now maybe there's something to it that just the procedure of negating, it simply requires double negation, maybe triple negation, because that's the nature of thought, that we can't do an ultimate negation. So the negations have to be done in steps. So it's possible that Hegel actually has it correct with the negation of the negation, but Adorno's idea is that that's not negative enough. So we would essentially want to get stronger thinkers and be stronger thinkers that wouldn't even need to do a negation of the negation, because our thinking was strong enough that we could get to the point we wanted to get to on the first negation.